Well, a warm welcome to those who are joining us for our ASCI webinar. We're just coming up 2 minutes to 1 p.m. in Australian Eastern Daylight Time, and we'll be kicking off in about just probably a few minutes after, a couple of minutes after 1. Just wait for a few more people to finish their meetings or whatever they're doing, their lunch, and they can join us for this webinar. So we'll talk soon. Thank you. Well, welcome to our webinar today, hosted by the Australasian Supply Chain Institute. My name is Dr. Stephen Morse. I chair the Ethics Committee of the Institute, but also run Unchained Solutions, which is an advisory and facilitation firm based in Macquarie Park, Sydney. We work with organisations to help them to develop their ESG strategy, reporting strategy, as well as provide training. We're a solution provider to help companies to comply with human rights due diligence legislation, such as the Modern Slavery Act here in Australia and other reporting mechanisms throughout the world. So it's a pleasure for you to join me today as we explore the role of AI in helping companies to screen and pre-qualify, but do more than pre-qualify their suppliers on their ESG and CSR credentials. So I hope that you find this session today, which will finish within an hour. We won't go beyond that time. We hope you find this informative, instructive, and that it's useful for you as you explore this issue. To get us started, let me just what we're going to cover today, following this introduction, would just be a brief overview of ESG reporting, what that means for those who are not familiar with the term. It's always good to clarify some of the key terms. There's going to be lots of acronyms today, so we're going to be clarifying them as much as possible. Then looking at the role of AI in ESG reporting, where it currently sits, some of the work that's being done and how it's helping organizations, as well as some of the key challenges and considerations that need to be taken into account today as this technology emerges. And there are a multitude of platforms evolving to help companies with this particular work. We're then going to look at a model that I work with to help as an automated process to help organizations both score and create a benchmark for their suppliers and their competitors, perhaps whoever they need to, other firms, if you like, both on their ESG score as well as their CSR credentials, so we can actually see the value of that in helping organizations, first of all and foremost, to pre-qualify suppliers, to benchmark themselves in the market, but also then to develop a strategy to work with suppliers based on the information that's been gathered and harvested through AI processing. So I hope that you find that great. There's an opportunity for Q&A. If you want to put your questions in the chat, I can address those issues. And if I can't cover all that off today, we'll get back to you via email. If you're happy for us to communicate with you in that way, and then we'll give you today's offer of what we can give to you to get you kick-started on your journey in working with suppliers in this matter. I want to begin with an acknowledgement of country, recognizing that people are dialing in from not just within Australia, but also globally. This is a custom of ours in Australia to recognize the great contribution that Indigenous Australians, First Nations people have given to our nation as custodians of the land in which we operate and live. I'm based in Ku-ring-gai country, upon where the Gadigal people are located. That's formerly contemporarily known as the Northern Beaches in Sydney. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Unchange acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connection to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So thank you. Welcome. A little bit about Unchained. Unchained is about helping organizations and their teams to flourish, to thrive, to create both a culture of not just compliance, but also of courage in order to address these issues. We were founded in 2018 by me and my wife, business partner, Sarah. And we're a female-owned business with B Corp and social trader certification. Our background is we have on-field experience working with underserved communities globally, including 6 years in Spain working with survivors of human trafficking. So that's our entry point into this the space of ESG is through the door of the social, in particular working with people who are subject to extreme forms of exploitation. We provide numerous courses, both e-learning and workshops, as well as providing strategy, analytics, and helping you to build out your governance and risk management frameworks with policy support as well. And we also work in the area of healthcare, particularly Sarah, who's a registered nurse. We have numerous courses both on modern slavery, human trafficking, as well as ESG. And we are solely within the S zone as a solution provider, but are a provider and a link to other solution providers around a whole range of ESG metrics should you require a broad range of support, for example, because it's a big area. Unchained enables companies to improve their ESG and CSR credentials with our strategic solutions to help organizations to get started, to assess the risks, improve business practices, and to make a positive impact on people and planet. So that's what we're about. We're a purpose-driven business, and we give a portion of our profits, to the Freedom Business Alliance and other grassroots organizations who are working directly with survivors, which is part of our commitment to addressing this issue as we face the corporate world. We're wanting to make sure that we're supporting those who are doing the hard yards on the ground working in the space. So let's explore the issue of ESG reporting. I want to begin with a story about a shipping vessel named AG Neptune. This story dates back to May 2023, which seems like a little while ago. I raised this story because it actually impacted one of my clients. This is a shipping vessel which had fuel on it, fuel by Viva Energy. And the ship came into Australian waters in May 2023. And at first, as it pulled into the port of Gladstone in Queensland, there was an alert regarding contamination of the fuel because of a leak in the ship. By the time the ship got to the port of Newcastle in New South Wales, the ship was therefore detained, arrested, and therefore banned from Australian waters because of its issues around contamination, but also issues around violations of human rights, with many mariners, sea personnel on board, who were suffering a range of human rights violations around inadequate water and food, as well as underpayment to the tune of about $150,000 for 21 people. So as a result, the ship was then banned from Australian waters. And that's the end of the story, because it then disappeared from view. But I raise this story because it does speak to the space in which we're looking to today around ESG. This example both speaks to many of the issues around the environment, what we're looking at in terms of how the infrastructure and the machinery that we use and how it impacts the environment and the risks relating to the environment, as well as the social dimension, the human rights dimension, how the work that we do may impact people that we're engaged with. And part of our role in this story was to do some further investigation to see what were the kind of the credentials, what were the actual what were these various actors who, in a sense, were playing in the engagement of this ship, because it was a ship. The ship was owned by Liberia. The ship was refueled in Taiwan. The ship was being chartered by a UK shipping company. The fuel on board was by an energy company, and then the ship was actually a supplier by one of our clients in the energy sector. And so there's all these actors involved, and the question then remained, and how do we actually go about verifying what kind of credentials these suppliers, these actors have regarding international maritime agreements and regulations. And to be honest, that process was quite difficult and quite labor intensive. And it really points to what we need to have in place in order to make these processes much more easier. And so if I was to ask you the question, if you were to survey your suppliers, look at actually the organizations that are doing business with you, how easy is it for you to actually verify the kind of score they might have on various ESG metrics? What kind of CSR credentials do they have, and do you have that information at your fingertips, and how accessible is that information? And today we're considering then, what is the role of AI? Since 2023, a lot of work has been done. A lot of AI has appeared on the scene with great gusto. And so we're now moving into an age of great technological disruption. And AI has a role to play, and how can we actually harness that energy for effective ESG reporting? In today's business landscape, environmental, social, and governance considerations have evolved from being merely peripheral concerns to becoming integral components of corporate strategy. And that integration of ESG into business strategy, even though there's a little bit of a kickback these days now that we have a certain person in the White House in the United States, that will continue. And technology has an important role to play in helping us to do this more effectively. As companies face increasing pressure to address societal and environmental challenges, integrating ESG dimensions into their risk management frameworks is no longer optional, but it's a strategic imperative. And there's a lot of data out there which builds the business case for this to occur. So if you want to, for example, do business with governments and with big corporates, for example, then you need to actually get finance for ventures, then you need to have the right credentials in place. And so this webinar will explore the importance of incorporating ESG factors into risk management, and how the integration of AI and international trade data can make a more efficient and effective process for us all. For those who are not necessarily familiar with the concept of ESG and what it all contains, it is quite a big beast, if you like. So if we look into the environmental camp, we really have two broad categories. One has to do with has to do with energy and energy output, and taking into account of that, and what kind of and what we're pumping into the air and in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, for example. So it's about questions of energy efficiency, renewable energies, and how can we actually tap into that and make sure that we are being energy efficient. The other side is around resource management, and this is more to do with how we're treating the resources of the earth and waterways. And so it's about how we're, in a sense, harvesting or extracting raw materials and the impact of that on biodiversity, for example, how the manufacturing process is therefore impacting local environments, for example, particularly factories that might be polluting, for example. How do we take into account of that and what's going into waterways, especially? And this all includes questions around plastics, use of plastics, use of packaging, and things like dyes and all the things that we might be, all the materials and resources, and how do we best use that both in the manufacturing, but also in terms of waste management as well. And in there's a big question around emergency preparedness. And this is how do we actually take into account that if we were subject to some sort of disaster, whether or not that's from natural disaster, a tsunami, for example, and I think of the example of what happened in Japan a few years ago, how can we actually make sure that our infrastructure is secure, that there's not an environmental fallout from some sort of emergency situation? So that all goes into E. The S camp is very also broad. And there's broad umbrellas around human rights, worker rights. We're thinking of how people in different workplace situations are being treated in terms of their pay, their working conditions, the state of their work environment, the safety of the machinery or the tools which they have, and do they actually have what they need to do the job well, and do they have the appropriate protection as they do those jobs? What are the conditions around children working in those contexts? Is that something which needs to be considered? Are children permitted to work in that environment? And are they being exploited? And then it broadens out to questions around diversity, equity, inclusion. How our environment, how do our companies think about and make sure that our workplaces are inclusive and accessible to a range of different people? It also touches on our local community outreach in terms of underserved communities, and in the Australian context, principally there's the question of how do we actually make life much better for First Nations people and make sure that they have opportunities, equal opportunities in this land, that they are custodians. On the governance side, which is more of the quiet area, we have questions around board composition, board engagement, and board integrity. So how are those who actually run companies and make decisions, what are their obligations, and how are they managing things from a financial point of view? It also includes questions around how reporting mechanisms, particularly grievance, the treatment of whistleblowers, for example, and what are the rights for different types of stakeholders, shareholders pay for performance. How do we actually assess our customers, for example, which is a growing area, knowing your customer, what is the flow of money in terms of money laundering, and a critical issue which is related to AI is around cybersecurity risks as well. How do we actually making sure that our data is actually well protected as well as the data of our suppliers and of our customers? So that's the broad sweep of what we need to do in the area of ESG. And in terms of the Australian context, and what's the main conversation in the public square, you could probably safely say that big questions around energy, how we are, as an energy providing country, how do we actually be energy efficient in this day and age? As a country that is, in a sense, a mine within itself for such coal, for uranium, for example. In the social zone, we've had lots of questions around diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Lots of Royal Commissions around how do we make sure that our workspaces and our community groups are accessible for all people and there's equal opportunity, whether or not that's for financial gain or not. And probably in the governance side, lots of questions around cybersecurity and AML, which are related. How do we make sure that in this digital age, that things are being protected? So these are key areas of focus for many organizations. terms of then reporting, well, simply what ESG reporting then is actually providing details, whether or not that's to a regulator, a reporting mechanism to, for example, to the government or to investors, for example, or to the market, providing details of your environmental, social, and governance impacts and taking into account of those. So what you're doing in the space, what you're doing to minimize impact and mitigate risk, to reduce waste, for example. So it could be a question of where do we need to make improvements? Where do we need to make reductions as well? It's a form of risk management to address business risks across those three areas and encourages openness regarding risks and opportunities, functioning as a communication tool to ensure that our company's genuineness in its actions. So big questions around greenwashing. How do we make sure that we're communicating accurately with the work we're doing? How do we actually think about questions around risk? What's our risk appetite for sharing? Perhaps areas where we're not necessarily doing as well as we'd like to do, but we have a plan in place to make improvements. So how do we actually state that well so that we're not overstating what we're doing, our commitments, and we're making progress? ESG holds substantial importance for consumers, businesses, and civil societies when evaluating a product, and the need for ESG management continues to rise despite kickback in the current global arena. With this framework, then we have a number of reporting mechanisms. One of the largest to emerge on the scene has to do with the European Union and their corporate sustainability reporting directives and due diligence directives, which are guiding companies within the European context to be transparent and to take into account all that they're doing on both environmental and social dimensions, particularly how they're actually making sure that the goods and services that are coming into the European Union are actually sustainable, that actually they are attending to a range of metrics to do both on the E and the S front. And so this is quite a substantial move by the European Union, and one that, given the size of the European Union, has a global reach in terms of its downward pressure on other markets, and in particular where there's a lot of manufacturing occurring in places like Southeast Asia as well. So what we're seeing in the space, though, is just a multiplication, and one of the tensions and complexities of ESG reporting is the volume of ESG mechanisms, which vary in terms of how issues and metrics, how things are measured, for example, and what are the expectations. And so part of the challenge for organizations is to make sure that the work that they're doing speaks to the relevant reporting mechanisms, whether they're doing business solely within a context like Australia or needing to actually appeal and report to different markets as well. So as we think about that framework and that lens of reporting to improve things both for both the planet and for people, the question then is, what is the role of AI in this whole process? Now, I'm not sure where you've coming to today in terms of your understanding of AI. There's a big conference going on at the moment in Paris around AI technologies, and so I'm sure it's a space in which the conversation is continually changing and emerging. So the information I have for you today may be new, or it could just be old, depending on where you are in terms of your understanding as this information continues to expand. So in terms of the technologies, there are three main sort of categories of technologies available around that are being used for ESG reporting. There's machine learning, where machine learning algorithms can analyze vast amounts of ESG data to identify patterns, trends, and anomalies. And this offers predictive and analytics for future ESG risks, automated data validation, and anomaly detection. Then there's natural learning processing. NLP enables AI to understand the process human language, making it possible to analyze unstructured data from reports, news articles, and social media. So this is more important in terms of extracting the information from textual data, and it helps in terms of report generation. And then there's generative AI, And here, these models, such as GPT, can create human-like text, making it easy to generate comprehensive ESG reports and narratives, automating the creation of ESG reports and generating insights from data and drafting sustainability narratives. So there's different models and different technologies that are being used to get the data and crunch the data and process it for our benefit to understand what's going on. Terms and then the models that are being used with those technologies. So there's supervised learning models. Here, these models are trained on labeled data sets to predict outcomes based on input data. So what you put in, then it will actually work with that to create a more predictive outcome. And this really helps in terms of the classification of ESG data and predicting ESG scores. Unsupervised language models, these models find hidden patterns and intrinsic structures in input data without labeled responses, and they cluster suppliers based on ESG performance, detecting outliers in ESG data. And then there's reinforcement learning models. These models learn by interacting with their environment to maximize cumulative rewards, and they optimize ESG strategies and help to actually in supply chain sustainability. So different models with those technologies, different models are being used to actually understand what's going on, and whether or not that's actually working out what's going to come in terms of the supply chain, and actually what's actually happening, and who may be already within the supply chain who doesn't have the right kind of credentials for effective ESG reporting. In terms of its benefits, the benefits of using AI, therefore AI, for ESG reporting, there's questions around enhanced accuracy and consistency. AI improves accuracy and consistency of ESG data by automating data validation and reducing human error. There's efficiency and cost savings. AI automates, and this is probably the most obvious piece, it then automates repetitive tasks such as data collection and report generation. So that will then save you time. So if you don't have to do all that work manually, which I know is a big pain point, particularly around supplier engagement and collecting the data from suppliers, then AI is your friend in that process. AI can also then help you with actionable insights. So you can look into that data and then actually extract key insights, and that helps to around looking for key risks and opportunities, and that then informs strategy and a proactive approach to risk management. And then there's real-time monitoring. AI enables continuous monitoring of ESG performance, allowing for real-time adjustments and improvements. So there's lots of benefits to AI. There's also challenges as well, but AI is a tool that can be used at this stage, still needing, thankfully, needing human agency to actually engage with the information and make sure that the information, what goes in is what comes out and what we need in order to help us to be strategic. So AI is definitely emerging and will provide more and more expertise as time goes on. So I suppose the question then for you, and I know you don't have capability to engage with me in this webinar, but really something to think about. Happy for you to put this in a chat and engage with us on this issue. Is what's the role of AI in the way that you engage in your efforts to benchmark suppliers, work with suppliers, verify the risks within your supply chain. Not just those who you buy from directly, whether or not they're trading companies or distributors, wholesales, for example, but as you look down through the supply chain, how are you harnessing and what tools are you using, what models are you using to actually get that information that you need in order to report effectively on ESG metrics? So that's something to consider. As we think about some of the challenges, that are currently there in terms of using AI have to do with the quality and the bias. So AI systems are only as good as the data they are trained on. Poor quality data leads to inaccurate ESG assessments and reporting. So again, as the technology advances, as AI models continue to absorb and learn from what we put in, then they will actually, the efficiency, the effectiveness will grow. But that is one of the key challenges at the moment in terms of, data in, data out, that will actually, the system and the AI process is still going to still in that process of development. Energy consumption is a key consideration. How much is there's a tremendous amount of energy that is required, electricity required to actually generate AI processing. I know this is a big question in the Paris conference this week. How do we actually consider this, particularly in relationship to sustainability and environmental sustainability? AI requires a tremendous amount of energy. And that is not, it's very hard to isolate that in terms of this is actually the energy that AI is using. But how does this accord with our use of energy, particularly electricity and our generation of electricity, and what will be the impact of that? So in that sense, AI is not going away. It's in its nascent, it's in a developmental stage, and we're yet to see the full impact of AI. So how do we think about that on the environmental metric? And then, as I've already alluded to, the evolving regulatory requirements, these continue to develop and grow. So yeah, the standards will evolve as well. So as AI progresses, the reporting standards and regulatory requirements will also be developing, very strong in places like, for example, the European Union, but emerging in many other countries as well. So this will actually provide a challenge for us as well. How do we actually make sure that those two kind of developments are working well together? So how do we, in one sense, monitor regularly the changes and update systems to ensure compliance with the latest standards that are relevant to our business as well? I'm going to move now to, based on that, to a model that Unchained uses, a system that we use just to, in a sense, ground this for us in terms of how AI is currently being used and what we use as an organization for our clients. This automated ESG reporting solution is powered by Trace ASCI, and it's enabling our clients who, although we are we're working with them at a strategic level, at an advisory level, helping them to build out their governance, their risk management. We're finding it helpful to actually use the data that we get from this platform to actually better inform those decisions that are being made, at this stage, at least, to help our clients to pre-qualify suppliers so that prior to actually accepting a job, they're able to then actually have a look at what their suppliers are doing, what their ESG score might be, and that's through international trade data and what kind of credentials they have in place, for example, ISO, or what kind of auditing report they might have, SMETA audit, for example. What are their credentials? What kind of mechanisms are they reporting under? What kind of policies might they have? Which will then encourage us before speaking to them that these are the kind of companies that we want to do business with. So just as a way of introduction, this solution empowers organizations to address supply chain risks, maintain compliance, and drive supply chain transparency. And in terms of four main features, it's built on it takes into account global standards. So these are integrated, internationally recognized frameworks like the ISSB, the IRF, the SASB, and the TCFD. These are all standards that are integrated and built into the system. It also integrates, it's a collaborative involvement, developed with input from 70 global banks, trade organizations, industry associations, and the ICC to ensure credibility and precision. So there's a lot that's been built into the infrastructure that's been built into the system. The platform provides company-specific insights, offers a clear understanding of individual supplier ESG and CSR profiles, as mentioned, including their certifications and accreditations and their trade activity. And this is really important for organizations to get a snapshot of them as they look to engage with suppliers. And then through the dashboard and the report that you can generate, then it actually enables companies to develop their own through the assessment to actually make their own decisions about how they are to proceed. Perhaps they need to isolate a segment of their suppliers who have been processed, who have been assessed, and from there to actually do some further due diligence and work, and that can be done also through the platform, through smart governance platform as well. There are lots of benefits of the platform in terms of providing scoring, so company, supply chain, and transaction scoring. Excuse me. The platform provides real-time data with date-stamped reports, ESG risk metrics based on quantitative, public and private and verified data, eliminating greenwashing, so that's an important consideration. Reducing data gathering insights by more than 80%. Access to 460 plus million companies of any size in order to get information. Enhance existing trade finance products, including sustainability linked supply chain finance. Scalable touch points to engage with clients on ESG risks and impact improvement, increasing FTE efficiency, which is of greater than 50%. So a lot of benefits in order to get real-time data and actually improve efficiency and satisfy various reporting requirements that as well. In terms of the methodology, the solution uses independent data. Trace ASCI leverages more than 180 trusted ESG and CSR accreditation data sources to analyze ESG risks associated with businesses, supply chains, and transactions. Mapping against different frameworks. So the solution maps against globally recognized frameworks such as the UN Sustainable Development Goals and sustainability credentials to ensure standardization. And it provides an ESG score and CSR accreditation risk assessment presented by a cloud-based portal, which we'll demonstrate very soon, to provide leaders with a risk assessment across SDG product impact, dual-use goods, and GHG emissions as well. So there's a lot that, in a sense, information that's going into this automated process. We've already mentioned some of the challenges of ESG reporting. This is another way of describing another lens in which we can think about it from the point of view of reporting entity. I'm not sure about your experience, but there is a lack of standardized data and metrics, which is a big pain point. How do we actually get the data? What kind of data do we need? And how do we make sure that it's accurate? And there are multiple data points. So how do we then take into account? How can we aggregate those? How can we bring those data points together onto one single location? On the supplier side, in terms of supplier engagements, many suppliers may be non-responsive. So they may not be, in a sense, at least understanding what's being asked of them. They may not be able to answer those questions, and therefore, depending on their cultural situation, they may not, in a sense, have the confidence to answer any of those questions and provide information. They may not be able to access that information themselves, and in terms of then managed transparency. So there's a hesitancy there within those suppliers, and so there's a lot that is therefore writing, and having a solution that is automated overcomes both sets of pain points. So addressing the pain points of both the buyer and the supplier as well. In terms of the data and its accolades, the information is being generated through Coriolis ESG by TradeSun. And this has in a sense got an accolade from the International Chamber of Commerce and recognized by the International Chamber of Commerce with the Sustainable Trade Finance Network. And so it's the credibility build is there. It's a reliable system and something which you can access very readily. There's two types of ratings that can be provided with the system. One is more high level, basic for smaller businesses to provide ratings. So if you are a smaller business, then the system can actually do something which is going to meet your immediate needs according to what you would need to be doing as an organization that is not necessarily reporting directly under any framework, but you are wanting to satisfy the needs of a corporate client, for example, or a government entity. And so it does provide different ratings across the ESG scores, accreditation, CSR accreditation and certification, where you would sit on certain ESG impact ratings, questions around dual-use goods and service assessments, GHG emissions assessment, adverse news check, and modern slavery assessment as well. For the larger corporate, for the larger business, there is a lot more detail that can be provided in addition to what is provided at the basic level. Then through a smart governance piece, then more questions can be answered to get a more detailed response. Should there be gaps within what has been harvested through AI and the international trade data. So there's a more intensive material assessment that can be used and generated through the system as well. In terms of just a case study of how this is being applied. So here we have an international airline that was needing to assess its supply base. They assessed 6,500 suppliers in 3 days, identifying 225 suppliers with significant ESG risks. And they implemented a targeted improvement program for these suppliers, working closely with an ESG consultant to transform their sustainability operations and align with the airline's reporting standards. So you can see there's a breakdown of that information of what they were able to do. And I hope you can see there that I think the green, it might be a little bit too blurred there certainly is on my screen at the moment, but just different ways of how the scoring is done and in terms of the allocation. So so a low ESG scoring would be up to 299. A medium scoring up to 499, and then from 500 to 1,000 would be considered high scoring, and that all then is visualized in the actual platform, which we'll get to very soon. The case study was done for Emirates and Emirates NBD Group, and it was a way they leveraged the data in order to assess and support their corporate and institutional clients to gain visibility across their supply chains by assessing sustainability ratings for individual suppliers and to ensure alignment with ESG standards and Emirates NBD's sustainability goals. So the impact, well, they got data-driven ESG insights provided. They were able to then get a full regulatory analysis for their clients' supply chain partners, and then they were able to, in a sense, get to advance really their track record and that of the supply chain as well. So lots of different benefits that went into the analysis, the automated process using the solution. A quote from the group head of wholesale banking at Emirates. Emirates NBD's partnership with ESG by TradeSun demonstrates the group's commitment to support our clients through their ESG journeys and provide them with best-in-class trade finance solutions. By harnessing the innovative automated solutions provided by ESG, our clients will be able to enhance their ESG credentials wherever they might be on their path to sustainability, especially when it comes to reducing third-party emissions from their supply chain. Corporations who encourage sustainable processes in their supply chain network enjoy a wider range of investors, and the proliferation of ESG scoring will help companies forge stronger stakeholder relationships. So that's a great testimony to one of the key inputs into the automated ESG reporting solution. As an example of as a key differentiator of how this might work, back in 2023, we have an example of a non-automated process. here. A client required ESG and modern slavery position insights across 254 suppliers. Work was carried out over a 4-month period with suppliers who were engaged through email engagement, self-assessment questionnaires, and phone calls. And the result was a 34% response rate in terms of their insights. In 2024, using the automated engagement, this is the result. Rather than 4 months, we're looking at 4 days and 100% insights. So that's the power of AI in using the technology as well. And in terms of just a competitor analysis, you can see that the platform in relation to others in the space is tracking comprehensively in terms of what it's actually doing and what it can actually help companies do as well. So let's just in the time that we have, let's just dip over. I'm just going to unshare my screen and then reshare my screen. Where am I? There we go. Just wanted to give you some insights into the platform itself. So this is a demo model for you. And when at the moment, these buttons here aren't dynamic, but they will be very shortly. You'll get this map view where you'll be able to see the suppliers and the companies that are in the system and where they're located. And so this gives you a high-level snapshot view of who is within your portfolio. So in terms of then, if we go to company, and you'll see here there's this spreadsheet format. We've got here listed the trading name and the legal name, the tier where that company would sit in your supply chain, in the supply base, whether or not there's CSR credentials included in the assessment, the ESG score for that company, the role that company plays in relationship to you, the main product and service offering, their business registration if they have one, and the country code for where they're actually based. So, for example, if we go into this company, Birdseye Limited, and we open it up, we immediately see the data that's coming from Coriolis ESG, the overall ESG score, and how they're scoring individually across environmental, social, and governance. So as you can see here, it's their overall engagement would be mid-range. They're slightly over the line, so a little bit more green, and the weakest area being around the social in terms of what they've going on there. So the score strongest in governance, weakest in social. And then we can then drop down into these fields and we can see what certifications, accreditations they have. So in terms of their CSR credentials, and what perhaps initiatives they might be under. So here there's 2 submissions made to the UK government and their modern slavery statement issued. So that's what they have in place. If we were to compare this, say, with Hall Hunter, here we can see a much lower ESG score, only 116, because the company actually weren't able to demonstrate what they were doing under the social, and the strongest being governance as well. And governance is often a stronger area because of what is often considered normative under governance credentials. What this might be telling us as we look at this information, though, is that the company actually might have credentials in the social, but they're not actually being ascribed as such. So, for example, there could be a lot going on there in terms of workplace health and safety and in terms of the employee contract, for example, but that actually it's not information that's actually been harvested in terms of the actual overall ESG score. Here we have two credentials, and they have both also submitted statements to the UK government for the Modern Slavery Act in the UK. Other suppliers, the Cooperative Global Group. Oh, all right. Not sure why that's not opening up. Let's go to Branston. All right, there's a bit of a jit in the system. Not sure what's going on there. Overall, so this is kind of just a main area where, yeah, your company, you can, for example, with this platform, you can upload your key suppliers, as well as have your own organization assessed and benchmarked, or you could actually do a competitive analysis through this. You could actually benchmark key players in your sector, and you could actually assess what they're actually doing. So there's lots of different ways in which the data can be used and improved upon, and a way to actually track the progress as well of your supplies. You can also, through a PDF function here, download the report, or all those insights downloaded into a report that can then go into your sustainability or modern slavery statement work that you have as well. So that's all available. So they're kind of the two key functions in terms of what's available and what we can see. So I'm sure, I think this might be just my internet connection, which is not enabling me to download. So that's just a demo of the platform itself. So just mindful of the time, and coming up to our time here. So I'm very curious, to know what kind of questions you might have regarding this. I know that I've given a tremendous amount of information today, but I hope that it's been of benefit to you to understand the role of AI in ESG reporting, and to present you with a model, a system that's out there in the market that companies are using to pre-qualify suppliers and engage effectively with suppliers for continuous improvement, as well as their own improvement, and use this as a benchmark to help them in their overall ESG reporting. If you don't necessarily have questions today, I don't think there's anything coming through here. Oh, there is one. Sorry, question. There we go. Great, thank you. Sorry, I'll respond to that. I can respond to that later. Just in terms of, if you have any further questions for us regarding this platform, in terms of if you want to talk further, we welcome the opportunity to meet. Through this QR code, you can set up a meeting with me through Calendly. And if you want to talk further about your ESG strategy needs and reporting needs, for those who are on the webinar today, the first 10 to book a meeting can also benefit from a 50% discount on company searches. So you can get 100 supplier searches done for $100 each, rather than the recommended retail price. So that's an offer for you today. So welcome the opportunity to speak further about the platform, show you the platform a little bit more, and talk about how we're helping companies to address ESG. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that's been an informative time. It's been a pleasure to present this information to you, and we look forward to hearing from you and connecting with you. And I appreciate ASCI and the opportunity to present through ASCI today. So thank you.
Olá.